going.
Big smiles from both players.
Big smile from both players.
They're happy to be here.
Cedric knows he's on camera. He's no stranger to it, so let's go ahead and get them battling. Cedric Phillips is 6-1 on white-black control. Logan Mize, currently 17th on our Player of the Year leaderboard. Green-white tokens also 6-0. Both players are going to lead off with some tapped lands, isolated. Oh. Cedric's just going to play a swamp and pass the turn back to Logan. Does Logan have a 2-drop? He does. We've got a Sylvan Advocate, no removal spell on his end step for Cedric. Play is going to be lightning fast, but that Sylvan Advocate is still on the battlefield.
No turn 2 or turn 3 play?
2 damage is going to come in from that Sylvan Advocate for Logan, going to drop Cedric down to 18. Logan's going to play a copy of Nissa, Voice of Zendikar.
I would really like to see Anguish Unmaking from Cedric here. To do nothing with his mana on this turn seems pretty... It's not ideal, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, we've got nothing. He's just going to draw a card for his 4th turn. Looks like we've got a Gideon ally of Zendikar. He's going to go ahead and make a 2/2 token.
So Gideon is great, but when you're in a situation like this, you have to worry about your Gideon just dying. If Logan has any kind of removal spell, he's going to be able to attack the Gideon. Even, you know, Nissa just minusing can put a lot of pressure on this Gideon potentially.
Yeah. So let's see what Logan has to come up here on his 4th turn.
One of my favorite plays with...
something like Gideon minus, and then a minus on that. Nissa could be real good for Logan here.
Yeah, what would be particularly great about that it would mean that Cedric couldn't just languish the whole board away and then plus his Gideon to attack one of Logan's Planeswalkers. So making an emblem is just a good long-term thing to do. And then if he makes the emblem and minuses the Nissa, that means he's going to be able to guarantee some damage on the Gideon and guarantee that his Sylvan Advocate survives a languish.
All right, well, here we have the Gideon from Logan after he plays his land for the turn. Let's see what he decides to do with it.
The other thing that you'll see players do a lot in this situation is to make a token with the Gideon and then minus the Nissa, just because it puts so much power and toughness on the board. But the threat of languish is kind of a big deal. So I would really like to see the emblem and then Nissa minus. It's just such a good turn now. It sets you up good in the late game because you have that emblem, and it keeps you safe against potential removal.
So it looks like he's going to make a Knight Ally token.
Maybe Logan just looked at Cedric, looked deep in his eyes and said, "You don't have languish."
What are we going to do with our Nissa?
I don't think... minusing is pretty good. Puts a lot of power and toughness on the board, and you can potentially minus again in next turn. So this is definitely the most aggressive use of Nissa. And this is a very common play pattern with the green-white token stack. Is to go 2-drop, turn 3 Nissa, turn 4 Gideon, and you make a token minus your Nissa, and you know you're usually set up pretty well. But if Cedric can slam a languish here, it's going to be a big deal.
Ooh. Well, he's going to chump with his Knight Ally.
Oh, that's ugly.
Languish is going to come down, clear up the board. Gideon's going to plus kill the other Gideon, and this could all have been prevented just with an emblem from Logan's Gideon.
Yeah,
and Logan even has another Gideon in his hand.
Yeah, and even though Cedric didn't do anything on turn 2 or turn 3 and looked to be behind, you can get away with having a slow start when you have these cards like Languish that can just catch you right back up. So Logan is able to rebuild here, but if he just had 2 emblems now, he'd be in a lot better shape.
Cedric also could just have another Languish here to kill that other Gideon. Even something like Sorin, kill your Gideon, make a 2/2, puts him in a real good spot.
Yep.
Let's see what Cedric Phillips is going to do with his 6th turn here.
Yeah, despite a slow start from Cedric and a fast start from Logan, things are starting to equalize. Now Logan is only slightly ahead, whereas before he was far and away ahead. Cedric has a lot of cards in hand, though, and with a stable life total, Planeswalker on the board, he's going to have a lot of options.
That is true.
You can't forget about those Shambling Vents either. They can they can really help.
Well, Cedric has his 6th land. Something like a Linvala the Preserver would be very good here.
Oh yeah, gain 5 life
Full
and
value.
get the token. Yeah. And after that, you could make a token with the Gideon so that you had more creatures than your opponent.
He's just going to Emblem.
Oh, this is Secure the
smells like
Wastes.
Secure the Wastes.
Yeah. I would say it reeks of Secure the Wastes.
Just make 5 2/2s.
Yeah.
Don't mind if I do. This is really going to allow him to pressure those Planeswalkers next turn if he has some removal spells.
Yeah, Cedric is doing a good job of playing this in a way so that he wins the Planeswalker war. And that's really what this comes down to, is aggressively finding a way to kill your opponent's Planeswalkers. And this is also one of the big reasons to play this white-black control deck. The combination of Languish and Gideon is just a haymaker 1-2 punch that is able to just get a huge advantage on the board against so many decks.
Looks like Logan is going to 0 his Gideon and make a 2/2 Knight. We're going to see another creature here, Sylvan Advocate. Looks like he does have 6 lands, so it's going to be a 4/5. We might even see a Nissa minus here. It's going to pump his team.
So the nice thing about this is it means that his Knights are going to be able to hold against these 2/2 warrior tokens that we expect to be coming from a Secure the Waste now. But I almost would have liked to have seen that Nissa just continually tick up. The ultimate on Nissa is a very real thing, and this white-black deck has a lot of ways to kill Nissa, but the fact that there's Gideon and Nissa puts a bit more pressure on Cedric to try to do that.
So Cedric is going to use Secure the Waste to make 5 1/1s on Logan's end step. They're actually 2/2s now because he has that Gideon emblem that gives all of his creatures +1/+1. He's going to draw a card for his turn, and now Cedric is in the tank. He likely has a lot of options, a lot of different removal spells, and now he wants to try and navigate this turn. Isn't going to be easy to figure out.
Yeah, the fact that Logan's Knights are 3/3s make things a little trickier for Cedric because he's just going to have to lose a lot if he wants to make any kind of attacks.
So Gideon is going to make a 2/2. Cedric's going to play another Gideon and get a second emblem, and that's going to make his soldiers 3/3s now, and his Knight's going to be a 4/4.
Yeah, and the Gideon emblem is so good. Like, everyone at home, just make emblems more often. A lot of times you look at them and they mean something on the board, but they're just going to mean like more and more as the game goes on because all your top decks are better.
So let's see how he's going to navigate this turn with his attacks. I think he's probably just going to send them all at Gideon.
Yeah, I would assume all of these are going at one Planeswalker.
All right, so we're going to get a Grasp of Darkness on that Sylvan Advocate.
Wow, so this is great. This means that that Sylvan Advocate is going to die, and Cedric's doing it before combat damage so that the Sylvan Advocate isn't going to kill the warrior token that it blocked. So Cedric could have gotten blown out by a Jamoka's command there, but Logan didn't have it.
And at the end of it all, Cedric's going to still have 3/3s. Logan's Gideon's going to go down to 1, and he's going to lose all of the creatures on the battlefield.
Yeah, and Logan's going to be able to come up with some blockers, but he really wants either an Avacyn or Sylvan Advocate or something that can eat one of these blockers without dying.
Well, he found an Oath of Nissa, which got him another land. Yes, just a land in his hand. He's going to be able to make 2 tokens here with his Gideon and his Nissa. But at this point, those Planeswalkers are not long for this world. And Cedric, if he just attacks 2 creatures on each Planeswalker, can kill them both this turn.
Yeah, and in these situations where both players have a fair amount of tokens as a cornerstone of their strategy, the person who has more Anthem effects is just light years ahead. I mean, Logan has no good blocks here.
Yeah, imagine how different this game is if Logan just emblems his first Gideon,
Yeah.
and that Sylvan Advocate never gets to die to the Languish.
Right.
And then the subsequent Gideon and the Nissa that he has in play just have such a bigger impact on the game.
Yeah. So it looks like he's able to save his Gideon here, but at a pretty big cost. Wow, and Cedric has another Gideon. So this one I probably wouldn't make an emblem with right away.
Well, he is just going to make a knight for now.
I think I'd probably like make a knight, plus an attack with it, and then make an emblem.
Then make another emblem.
You know?
Got to have 3.
Might as well be greedy and just keep your Gideon all around.
Not to mention these Shambling Vents are 4/5s currently.
Yeah, they're huge. With the next emblem, they'll even be able to push past Sylvan Advocate.
Ooh,
so
baby.
5/6s.
Logan's doing some math. He might
Doing
have
the math.
He might have
am I
picked up
dead yet?
something. It's like we just got a big hangerback walker. He can make a knight with Gideon.
So this is kind of nice because he can potentially block something, eat it, and if Cedric tries to kill it, he'll have a bunch of flyers that can attack his opponent's Gideon.
Yeah, this makes it so that plussing the Gideon and attacking here isn't that nice of a proposition.
That said, Cedric may just emblem again and send 3 creatures at Gideon and 2 creatures at Logan, and
Yeah, I guess as long as he kills the Gideon here, it doesn't really matter if Logan gets 4 Thopters.
right. And by plussing it, it means that Logan isn't even going to be able to kill Cedric's Gideon right away.
Yeah, the Knights are 4/4, so the Hangerback Walker can kill itself anyway with the block. Might
Right.
as well get in the red zone with that Gideon, get some damage in.
Yeah.
Depending on what he has in his hand, might even just also should have attacked with a Shambling Bend here.
Yeah. Well, he's still got cards, so he's got stuff to cast.
Maybe something like a Read the Bones, get some more action.
He
Or
may actually
a
have
Hallowed
Hallowed
Moonlight. If he has Hallowed Moonlight, this is going to be
Oh,
awesome.
a
Cedric has
bloodbath.
literally had everything on every corner for this
Yeah.
deck. He's played it well enough to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And something like Hallowed Moonlight here is just going to be just insane. Is he going to stop him?
Nope, guess not.
Oh, are we just not going to get our Thopters?
I assume they asked the table judge and they're coming.
Yep, there we go. He is going to Read the Bones. I would have done that first to try and find this Hallowed Moonlight.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done.
I think I might have done that also.
Logan's going to take a bunch of damage as Gideon's going to die. He is going to be able to untap here with 4 Thopters and Knight. This is actually really smart not chumping with the Knight there.
Yeah.
Now he has 5 creatures. If he were to happen to draw an Ormondal, he might be able to potentially get back in this game.
Yeah, and an Ormondal is a great threat against a lot of the control decks. It's a little worse against this white-black deck because it has access to Anguish and Making, but Logan would still love to have it. He's in a bit of a tough spot, though, because he's at a low life total. These creatures from Cedric's side are pretty big, so if he commits enough creatures to attack Gideon, I think he might just be dead on the crackback. Hopefully, for his sake, he drew something like Secure the Wastes.
Well, he's going to attack with all of his creatures here, so it sounds like that might be what he's drawn for the turn. Here we have a Secure from Cedric. It's going to make a couple 3/3s.
So this is going to be able to save Cedric's Gideon and also just gobble up that Knight token. And I have to imagine that Logan has Secure the Waste, but he's still in a rough spot.
Gideon's going to take 3, go down to 2. Logan's going to pass the turn back. 1, 2, 3. He has 8 mana available, so he can make 7 1/1s.
Yeah, Cedric has a lot of attackers, and they're huge. Logan doesn't really have a big play that he can make from here. The best that he could do is cobble together an Avacyn and flipping it. That's like his one good way to catch back up from being behind. But other than that, just drawing a random Sylvan Advocate here or Planeswalker there is not really going to do it. He doesn't have much time because his life total is so low.
Hallowed Moonlight would be pretty good here, too.
Oh, yeah. That would be game.
Cedric's going to plus his Gideon and animate it. Let's see what else he has going on.
If you didn't have Hallowed Moonlight before, it's good this turn, too.
All right, we're just going to get a seven tokens off of Secure the Waste.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these tokens are going to be on trump block duty, though.
Looks like we've got 5 3/3 soldiers. We got a 4/4 knight. And we've got an 8/8 or a 7/7 Gideon. Looks like he's just going to put 1 on each.
Wow, really preserving his life total. I think I would have tried to make it so that at least one of those knight tokens or warrior tokens died. Can take 3 extra damage and put one of the warriors that blocked something and you know, the warrior that's still alive to trade with one of them. But looks like Logan just has to pack it in. He's too far behind. And Cedric takes game 1 like a boss.
So Cedric is going to win game 1 here on white-black control over Logan Mize on green-white tokens. Let's go ahead and take a look at the player's sideboard to see what kind of options they might have. Logan has 2 Den Protector, 2 Evolutionary Leap, a Silk Wrap, 2 Clip Wings, a Hallowed Moonlight, a Linvala the Preserver, 2 Angelic Purge, 2 Declaration in Stone, and 2 Tragic Arrogance. How do we think he's going to sideboard?
So the cards that I really like are Den Protector and Evolutionary Leap. I also like Angelic Purge quite a bit. Those are the cards that for sure I think are going to come in. The other cards that Logan can bring in, but I'm a little more unsure about, are he could consider Tragic Arrogance and he can consider Declaration in Stone, both as ways to kind of deal with Cedric if Cedric develops a big board, since a lot of his stuff is token based. I'm not in love with those cards. I still think Logan should try to be the aggressor, try to be the one who has more emblems and just kind of more stuff to slam into Cedric. But he might bring in those cards to deal with the tokens.
I can definitely agree with all of that. Let's take a look at Cedric's sideboard. We've got 3 Duress, 3 Kalidas Trader of Get, 2 Eldrazi Displacer, 2 Thought-Knot Seer, a Deadweight, 1 Transgress the Mind, 1 Ultimate Price, 1 Ob Nixilis Reignited, and 1 Linvala the Preserver. What do you think Cedric's going to do?
So I think Cedric is definitely going to bring in Duress. It's one of the best ways to deal with Planeswalkers. You can grab one of Logan's few removal spells so that Cedric's threats can really stick. The other card that I think Cedric can consider is Eldrazi Displacer. I think it can do a lot of work against Hangerback Walker and random tokens. These games are going to draw out. Both players are going to have access to a lot of mana, and Eldrazi Displacer can really excel in those sort of situations. I think that Cedric can consider a card like Ultimate Price, but I don't think he really needs to board in more removal spells like that. I think the most likely thing is that he wants to trim a Grasp of Darkness and bring in an Ultimate Price as basically an upgrade. And then I also like Ob Nixilis and Linvala in this matchup. Ob Nixilis just being a good source of card advantage, can sort of kill, target anything, and Linvala being a good way to attack Planeswalkers with, you know, because it's flying, and just a great card to play if Cedric does fall behind, makes it a great sideboard option.
I agree with all of that. Now, one thing I do want to point out here is if you look back behind Logan Mize, you might see Tom Ross.
Ooh.
And he is exceptionally well-dressed. And if anybody would like to be as well-dressed as Tom Ross, you can get one of our Star City Games T-shirt.
Whoa, there he is again.
We see him here. That's the official shirt of StarCityGames.com. 50% cotton, 50% polyester, 100% awesome like Tom Ross. They're screen printed in the USA. Go to StarCityGames.com/apparel. You can get yours today.
He's got that blue steel gaze. It's the death stare.
So as we come back here, our players are just finishing up their sideboarding action. Cedric Phillips is currently up a game on white-black control over Logan Mize, who is on green-white tokens. Game 1 seemed like it felt like Cedric was just like ahead the entire game, but it all came down to that one turn where Logan walked head first into that Languish Gideon plus, and didn't even potentially play around it with making an emblem off of his own Gideon.
I think for the most part that game, Cedric was just able to milk more out of his cards. I think that's basically what it came down to. Both of them drew a similar number of spells and lands of similar quality, but Cedric was able to just line things up in a way where he just got a bit more value out of what he drew.
Well, both players are going to start game 2 with a tapped land. Logan is going to have a Sylvan Advocate on turn 2. Cedric is going to have a Transgress the Mind. And Logan's going to reveal, looks like we have Oath of Nissa, Evolutionary Leap, 2 copies of Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and a copy of Archangel Avacyn. So Logan doesn't have a third land, but he does have an Oath of Nissa to try and find one. That Evolutionary Leap can be pretty big value against this, removal-based attrition-style deck. And Gideon is just awesome Gideon.
Yeah, I would certainly take the Gideon, even though Logan has 2. They're just so good. Avacyn is something that is usually a little easier to deal with, but if Cedric decided to take away a lot of his instant speed removal, taking the Avacyn makes a little bit more sense.
I agree with that. It also could just be that Cedric has some duresses that he can use to get rid of some of those Gideons as well.
Yeah.
But he's just going to pass the turn back. Logan's going to draw for the turn. Looks like he picked up a copy of Westvale Abbey in his hand, but that Oath of Nissa is going to come down and look at the top 3 cards of his deck, and he can pick a creature, a land, or a planeswalker card.
Another thing is if Cedric has a Languish and a Gideon of his own in his hand, he may think that he's going to be able to take care of his opponent's Gideons no problem.
Well, Logan's just going to attack for 2 with that Sylvan Advocate. He's going to play that Evolutionary Leap. Cedric's going to read some bones. Let's see what he does. Top, bottom, he's going to draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, fall down to 16.
So both of these decks are basically firing on all cylinders. We're getting a pretty good start from each one. Each one is able to use all of his mana on the 2nd and 3rd turns, which is not always the case. So that's pretty sweet.
Big difference here is that Logan has quite the board presence, and Cedric does not yet.
Yeah.
Oath of Nissa is going to allow Logan to deploy that Gideon Ally of Zendikar, even though he only has 1 white mana on the battlefield.
Yep.
He's going to make a Night token, crash in with that Advocate for 2 points of damage, bring Cedric Phillips down to 14 and pass the turn. Do we have something like a Languish here? Nope, just going to be a Kalitas Trader of Get. Looks like he did bring that Kalitas in. That is very interesting.
Yeah, that's a little surprising to me. The green-white tokens deck doesn't have that many creatures. That said, sometimes if you can just stick one good threat like a Kalitas, the green-white tokens deck, it's so light on removal that Cedric may just be able to ride this Kalitas to victory.
Well, we have a Declaration in Stone for Logan. So he's just basically used almost every card in his hand. He's going to take care of that Kalitas, give Cedric a clue. He is going to be able to activate his Gideon, crash in for 9 points of damage here. That's going to bring Cedric down to 5. He still has 3 mana available, so he can utilize that Evolutionary Leap if he needs to, if Cedric happens to draw any removal spells.
And Cedric's basically dead.
Yeah, even if he has something like a Languish here to clean up the board, he's still just dead to that
he needs to
Gideon.
answer both the creatures and the Planeswalker, which is pretty hard for him to do on turn 5.
A big puffy cheek sigh there for Cedric.
Yeah. Logan had a pretty aggressive draw, and Cedric's discard spell into Read the Bones was not the best at handling what was on the board.
Yeah.
So that combined with the fact that Cedric is on the draw, looks like we're probably going to be going to a game 3 pretty soon, but we'll see what Cedric can muster.
Well, we've got an Eldrazi Displacer. So this will let him blink that Gideon if it gets activated.
Well, he doesn't have enough mana. He needs a 6th land for that.
Oh, it is 3 mana to activate the Displacer.
I think Logan just activates his Gideon and shoves.
Yeah.
And then Eldrazi Displacer is likely going to have to chump block.
He also drew a 6th land here that's going to turn on the Advocate, and that's just going to be game.
Yeah.
So Logan Mize is going to take this game 2 in blazingly fast fashion. Cedric did have some action early on, but the creatures in combination with the Planeswalkers for Logan just kind of steamrolled that game over. I feel like that's what Logan needs in order to take these games in this set, and it's going to be much more difficult for that to happen when he's on the draw than when he's on the play.
Right, and even though Cedric was able to use his mana more efficiently than he usually can on the opening turns, which means in certain ways his draw had a good start, things just didn't line up the way he wanted them to. He had a discard spell when his opponent had pressure. He had a card draw spell when his opponent was developing more pressure. And then Cedric just found himself in a situation where his opponent had deployed something to the board every single turn of the game, essentially. And Cedric had been drawing cards and disrupting his opponent's hand and just not interacting with the board at all. And then you know, when he needed to interact with the board to make sure he didn't die, he was just too far behind.
Well, it's like what you said before. You'd much rather be on the deck that has all of the questions instead of all of the answers, because sometimes the answers don't line up correctly. Do we think that either player is going to sideboard anything differently?
I don't think so, no. I think they're just going to shuffle them up, maybe go through it one more time just to make sure things are exactly how they want, or make their opponent assume that maybe they're switching something. But for the most part, I at least do not make any changes to my deck when I'm on the player of the draw.
I could potentially see Cedric getting rid of those Kalidas, realizing they probably shouldn't have brought them in.
Maybe.
But it all depends. Now, both of these players are pretty active in the Magic community. Cedric, especially with content, being as he's the media manager at StarCityGames.com. Yep. And you can check out a lot of the StarCityGames.com content through our YouTube channel. So if you can't get enough of the Boz and myself, all of the SCG Tour archives are going to be there.
Nice.
You can also check out the Versus series with Ross Merriam versus Michael Majors, and then the rest of the premium crew. You can get premium archives once they're transferred over to the YouTube channel, unboxings, and much more. Absolutely free. YouTube.com/StarCityGames.
For when you can't get enough, there's more. And now they're shuffling up. Hopefully we have another good game. We kind of saw a little bit of a blowout from one side and then the other. Hopefully we get a little bit more of an even game for this game 3.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot more back and forth in game 1. I just felt like Logan was always on the losing end of the back and forth, whereas in game 2 he just basically pushed Cedric down and kicked dirt in his face is what it felt like.
Yeah, Cedric's draw just didn't impact the board enough. That's basically what it came down to. If Cedric had been able to pair a removal spell with either a discard spell or either a card draw spell, that would have worked out well for him. But the fact that he had 2 spells to cast that just didn't impact the board meant he was just too far behind.
Now, I do also want to point out that Logan was able to find the lands on time to curve out with his hand, and he did only keep 2 lands. So sometimes it's good to be good. Sometimes it's even better to be a little bit lucky.
Well, he did have the Oath of Nissa, and the deck does play 25 lands, but yeah, I do agree it's always better to be lucky than good.
All right, so we're going to go into game 3 here. For those of you just joining us, we have Cedric Phillips on white-black control against Logan Mize on green-white tokens. Both players are currently 6-1 on the day. The winner of this match is going to lock up their spot for day 2, going up to 7 wins and affording even 1 more loss in the last round, if fortune happens to put that upon them. Looks like both players are going to take a mulligan, and we're going to go down. We're going to go down to 6.
Yep. I think that was a situation where Cedric mulliganed and Logan looked at his hand and said, "Oh, I'll beat you too bad with this one. We got to make it a little more even for the crowd."
Let's be nice.
Yeah. But both great players. I'm sure they're going to keep some solid hands that have some action.
They are both great players. And as we see there, Logan Mize is currently 17th on our Player of the Year leaderboard, which means he gets to come into these opens with 1 bye, which helps quite a bit. He is 26 from Orlando, Florida. He has 7 open top 8s, 2 invitational top 8s. He's a golf, bowling, and baseball feat. He says golf, bowling, and baseball feat his competitive drive outside of Magic. He has a near encyclopedic knowledge of his favorite animal, the penguin, which I kind of want to test him on that.
Yeah, we still got to do that. We'll quiz him for over dinner. That's what we'll do.
And he is a psychology student at the University of South Florida. So he's also a part of Team Next Ridge Games, which is based out of Florida. It's pretty awesome. A lot of those Florida-based players have been able to hook up with Next Ridge Games and help facilitate getting to these events, having all the cards for them. So it's pretty sweet. For those of you watching that would have any particular questions that you want us to quiz Logan Mize on for his,
send us some
penguin
really
knowledge.
Hard, like
send us some
questions.
awesome penguin questions on Twitter. You can just tag Andrew Boswell and I.
Let's see if we can stump him.
And we'll see if we can stump Logan Mize on some penguin quizzing.
Give us that real obscure penguin trivia. I know it's out there.
So we're underway here for game 3. Both players just had a tap land on turn 1. Cedric has an untapped land and passing back to Logan. Looks like he does have a hangerback walker here on turn 2. No response from Cedric. Are we just going to get to read the bones? He is going to read some bones.
So in a lot of ways, this game is already similar than the last, but it's pretty different simply because of the fact that Cedric is on the play So that means he's like half a step ahead of where he was before. And also, Logan's Hangerback Walker is not nearly as much pressure as that Sylvan Advocate. So we could even see them play basically the same spells that they played last game, but because Cedric is on the play and this Hangerback Walker is not a Sylvan Advocate, we may see Cedric come out ahead of basically all this like similar interactions.
Cedric is going to leave both cards on top with his Read the Bones, fall to 18, and draw 2. Logan does have a copy of Oath of Nissa.
I don't think he has a land.
That found a Sylvan Advocate, but it looks like Logan just might not have a third land to deploy that Advocate.
Ouch, this is bad.
He does not. He's going to level his Hangerback Walker, pass the turn back to Cedric. If Cedric can land a Gideon here, it could be absolutely backbreaking. He finds the 4th land. Gideon ally of Zendikar is going to come down. It's going to make a 2-2, and this is real bad news for Logan.
The father has entered the battlefield.
Ooh, Logan is going to draw another copy of Oath of Nissa, does not have another land.
And I would just fire off the other Oath of Nissa. You're just not going to win this game without your land drops. It's just the most important thing.
Well, it looks like it did find a land, but it is going to be a Canopy Vista.
Oh, this is painful.
It's going to enter the battlefield.
I don't know if
tapped.
I can watch this. Man, this is rough.
That Hangerback Walker is going to be able to play decent defense for a little bit, but this Gideon has a chance to just run away with the game.
Yeah, Cedric is in a commanding position. Logan was in a similar situation last game where he needed Oath of Nissa to hit a land drop, and a lot of the times you can count on a draw step and or Oath of Nissa finding you, that third land when you need it, but Logan got the bad end of the stick this time.
Well, Logan's going to play that Canopy Vista tap, pass the turn back to Cedric Phillips. He's going to draw for the turn. And at this point, what Cedric has to figure out is, how can I apply as much pressure to Logan as possible without expending the least amount of resources?
I think Cedric is thinking about dinner at this point. That's what I think he's doing.
And we have a Kalidas Trader get, which is going to shut off that Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, no trump blocks for that one.
It's going to let him plus his Gideon and crash in for 5. Man. Hangerback Walker is going to level up to 3 on Cedric's end step. He's going to take a draw. It's another land, but it enters the battlefield tapped as it's another Canopy Vista.
Yeah, this is brutal for Logan. He needs those land drops. This green-white deck is so dependent on its land drops. It can't actually do that many good things on so few lands. A lot of its good plays are just 4 and 5 mana plays. And without those lands, he just doesn't have access to the power that he wants.
Well, Declaration in Stone is going to let him take care of that Kalidas Trader of Get from Cedric. That will free up that Hangerback Walker to be able to make some Thopter tokens if it dies. But if Cedric has just another Kalidas here, that could be real bad for Logan. It's like a Transgress the Mind from Cedric is going to target Logan.
When someone's missing their land drops, playing something like Transgress or Duress is perfect, because you know that they have a lot of gas.
So we're going to see a Gideon, 2 Secure the Waste, 2 Sylvan Advocates. Gideon's going to be taken with that Transgress the Mind. Now that Cedric has perfect information, he can see how best to navigate these turns.
And you could sort of see there why during when we were looking at the sideboard, I didn't think that Cedric would bring in Transgress the Mind, because it actually has a pretty good chance of missing. The green-white tokens deck, even its expensive spells, some of which are, Secure the Waste, you really want Duress, not Transgress.
Well, Anguish Unmaking is going to take care of that Hangerback Walker and deny Logan getting any Thopter tokens for it. He did find a land for his turn, which means he has 2 Sylvan Advocate and 2 Secure the Waste still left in his hand. Neither of those are going to match up very well against this Gideon ally of Zendikar right now, and he is just being relentless with his attacks.
Yeah, and we had a landslide victory in Logan's favor game 2. This looks like to be a landslide victory in Cedric's favor for game 3. Good on Cedric, though. I think that he played quite well this match, and I'm not surprised at all to see him doing well at these tournaments. He played this deck last weekend at the Grand Prix. He did quite well despite not really knowing the deck that well, and I'm pretty excited to see if he can make a deep run for top 8 this weekend.
Yeah, especially in that game 1. I feel like a lot of those turns weren't very easy, and he navigated them very well.
Yeah.
All right. So Logan's just going to deploy those 2 Sylvan Advocates, pass the turn back to Cedric. If Cedric has something like a Declaration in Stone here, does he have any in his deck?
Well, if Cedric just has
it doesn't look like he does.
Like any removal spell,
just a removal spell. It's great.
But a Declaration of Sin would certainly be an immediate win because he'd be able to cast it, activate his Shambling Vent, plus his Gideon, and just, you know, bash with the team. And
doesn't actually look like he has any in his 75.
Well, I like the way he built his deck. To be fair, with the white-black control deck, you have access to the black removal, so there's really no need at all to be playing Declaration in stone.
Yeah. Even something like Languish wouldn't be all that bad here.
Yeah, that's true.
He's just going to plus his Gideon, crash into the red zone. Let's see if Logan decides to take it all or just chump block.
And I like this attack because just making more 2/2s is not really that productive, but putting Logan on such a fast clock is going to really limit his options and cut his draw steps.
Cedric also has a Linvala, the Preserver. It's going to enter the battlefield. Not going to get any triggers because he's already way far ahead in all of the categories that this card is looking at. But it is going to give him a 5/5 flyer that is just a lethal attacker by itself.
Cedric takes it. What a boss.
Cedric Phillips is going to win this match 2-1 over Logan Mize. White-black control is going to move on to 7-1. Logan's going to fall to 6-2, but still be very live to make day 2 of this event. Got to say, give it up for Cedric. He played very well that match. Game 1, he had to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, he played it quite well.
Figured out the proper lines. I have to imagine that not a lot of people would have made as many emblems as he did, and it turned out to be 100% perfect.